Bring in signal, correlation attractions. And we'll correlate into track interference. All right. Now, hopefully, can everybody see me in line condition setting, even though we're on continuous time frame? See the metric screens line adaptation lines of surface. Does everybody see me in point traction? Everybody see me? Okay. The screen is black. Light signals on, camera off, location centers of travels. Everybody see me locations? That's all clear for us. Great. So I'm seeing black. My screen is black, but you see me. Okay, that's where we are in traction. All right. Okay, so it's basically just seeing myself now when we are line rotations. Clocking settings all object correlation setting track interference. Bounds of communication 1 center line condition setting. Confirmation set locations. All right, so direct lines of correlation lines of calculation on platforms in 114. Says communication lines of highest interference 1 equals lines of 4 channel communication of 1. Says communication of 1 and position of 1 and 1 track location. Now direct modification lines is done.
Okay, I found this on the web for direct lines.
No, I don't need Sarah correlation attractions. She's getting very confused. Direct modifications of platforms and line signals. In platforms and communication lines are programs and direct signals in set location. Okay. Now the process correlation line tractions opens all signals, modificates the centers and travel position operation lines of surface and travel. Okay. Okay, so that one indicates line condition setting as a formula and correlation lines of attractions. We've done this before where there's a black screen on my side, but you guys see me, right? Okay, so it's interesting how it locks the system because it knows where it is. The center core line setting is the earth line rotation surface. Now the 144 is in center. Okay, we've got a 24 clocking settings of north, east, west, and south in set location. That's how it's set up, right? Platforms of communication setting in position on a 3 lines, which is the mind and heart and the soul. But the body comes in a rotation cycle and generation. Okay. All right, so that's how it's set up. Now it's a data process lines of a data line screen that sets communication. All right. The center core line interference sets lines of communication grounds, sets position of what's above and what's below in setting. Okay. So correlates to the VR system. Okay. Equals lines of mass, volume, and position velocity. Correlates interstellar mode. I'll go through automatic line screens, direct modification screen lines, graph calculations in position location, and cynical calculations. Right? All right, so we got a VR setting in position north, east, west, and south location. Okay, that's how it's set up. The platforms of communication lines is ground lines of 0 in position of face recognition. Okay. Face recognition is extremely important because we go through line division and center core settings and calculations. Okay. Now you have to understand how this all works now because the 3 ventricle settings has a 3-track provision of 3 forks in travel. Right? Your heart connections. The conception lines of its box frame lines its connector with the high center interference into your data highways. Correlates the track interference in position of 4 settings and an 8-line provision. Okay, and 2 tractions in set locations. That's how it's all set up. Okay. So how this is all in position of the VR line setting, the graph communication lines has to understand its data ports in position of its portal stargates. Now, Gypsum on Q ports the system and travels in direct settings to your delta headies and travel. Okay. So it's positions of platforms, signals, lines, modification, screen lines, adaptation lines of surface. Okay. So we go in the opposite direct signals and set locations and calculations. All right. And then we go through upline signals and set location of travels. 4 line centers and 4 patterns of correlation lines of security. Okay. The position location is all levels of Vega, which is dispatch and set location. All right. Her tentacles come out of travel lines. 4 line cycles in one center, 4 line cycles in another center, and 4 line cycles in line condition of center of operations surface. Sets position lines of 4, 8, and 12. 12 line sectors correlates to lines of graph calculation line screen interference, 12 vision line interference, 12 graph communication line centers, 12, 12, 12, line condition set 12, 24. Sets lines of calculation over 6, lines of 30, adds lines of 2 and track location 1 settings, 36 fields and setting, and set locations, right? Protecting lines and the spacing lines of core lines in the 5th dimension line setting. So as we come in that position, those locations, things get a lot more complicated in position of travel, in direct signals, and calculation. Okay? All right, but I'm just showing you exactly how this is all set up. So your actual Earth line rotation, let's go through the particle line. Those locations, right? Set in position locations, all through generation screens. All right, so that process position, let's start with the center and rotate the system around in line position locations and set locations. Start with that calculation, right? Flux capacitor 3 line splits. Tower correlates in 1 split line setting, it travels. So it correlates the line settings into electrical line communication and fusion to a Brownian sphere. It's got a chord line into 5 track line position lines, atmosphere line screens, 5th dimension line, each line rotation. Correlates calculation to VR setting and travel. Okay? So we take the particle lines of accelerator around the system in travel calculations, so point graphs in calculations, right? So the central system of your Earth is in the center point. Let's ground the settings. Center core lines, highest center, blue location. And then we go through the round centers, correlation to track interference. So the blue is the outlines of throat pattern, correlates to travel lines. The brown is in position location of the setting. And the correlation of the green is in the center correlation. That's a calculation of its matrix lines of balance of yang and track location. That's the Earth, all right, your Earth perception. So we go through track lines of particle line interference. We take position lines of calculation setting their travels. Point communication, 12 lines of rainbows. Travel point lines of graph communications. Now we get in direct line signals. That track location lines of 24 setting. 24 lines east and west. Now that scales to balance communication lines of high center locations. Center communication. Splits anomalies and line track lines. Pi generation line screen and position operation line system, a compass. Direct modification lines, cycle line division, rotation, surface, and traction. Okay, very powerful. All right. So off lines of system, we go on the opposite direct signals and set location line condition of travel. Okay. So the Earth actually transits and goes around the center core setting. All right, so that's travel. Let's go with the round line rotation. So it's going around position lines. It's going to go through all lines. So it has to go counterclockwise all the way around, and they go all the way back, which is going forward, which is clockwise. Counterclockwise all the way around. Connections all of us clockwise going all the way around and setting. All right. So that's communication setting. Back forcing the lines into 3 triangulation line communication to its position. All through calculations. Okay. And again, we go to the center core settings, which is all metric meters. Now we correlate the grounds, which is all brown. Align center high correlations and interactions. Start with that locations, right? And again, we go with the green line, which is the matrix core. Sets communication of cortex line, design line, high positions, operation line, condition system. Right? That's the correlation setting, right? So it counterclockwise to clockwise, right? The rotation spin sets lines. That sets lines of communication of center operation to its infinity line rotation surface. It puts everything in golden cycles, a line connection setting and phase recognition of time. Okay? All right. So once we go into the center core line settings, once it goes in calculations, it's counterclockwise or clockwise. The provision lines of correlation line interference sets the core track location of 144. 144 platforms and position lines of center correlation. Okay? Platforms in setting, ready to go. And a 4-track provision. Okay? All right, so that's set up in 24. Now we go into the diamond core in position of travels of data screens. Data ops, signals, singularity, lines of programs, and the VR line rotation, surface, and traction. Okay? All right. So once we get into that line setting, everything comes in information, location, or grounds, how it operates the system locations. 144 and a 24 million line frame, indirect locations in position of 24, 24, 24, 24. Northwest, southeast, track location line can setting, right? So 36 fields are set up into 2 track locations and towers of communication. Now, Hemdell's going to get the ping, coordinate setting, trial position, point graphs. That center lines is communication center calculations, right? Line position of Pluto, 3 signals and line conditions, 1 center. Sets correlation lines attractions. Brings lines communications, 3 settings, 1, 2, and panels, and a 3-track division cross line signals, and a 3-line split lines of anomaly. Sets communication lines highest interference, clock line settings, all levels of operation, surface and traction. Direct modification, 1 signal, 1 panel, 1 line rotation, surface and track location. Okay? Now that directs lines to center lines, sets up the 144 traction. Platforms A, B, C, and D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Set lines of 6 over 7 over 8 over 9 over 10 over 11 over 12. And set locations. All right? 12 signals lines. We got a 36 line field. Field itself comes into calculation lines of its fractal. Fractal communication lines equals lines correlation lines of CPU. Sets lines highest interference, species line communication setting. So it's a 12 graph communication screen, directing lines to high interference into 5th dimension lines of space. Trackification heart generation screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, equals lines of correlation setting in the VR system. Hoo-ah. Done by equation. That's how it's set up. Okay? So we go for the platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 7. We split the anomalies of the ground lines. We position lines programs of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 line condition setting and program locations upline, swinging line interference, pentagram line centers, pentagraph communications to its pendulum, directing line signals in positions to travel in point lines of grass, in communication, split lines anomalies, and 2-track divisions in 1 cycle. Direct modification line screens, code weaving screen lines, direct line signals, modification screen interference, trap point line graphs, in direct line condition setting, in position to its operation surface, and 2 vector correlation screen lines, adaptation of 144 track location. Done by equation. All right, so those 36 line screens, the frame position lines of the panels changes all communication to center. Now with center core lines of computer framing, direct modification line, screen line. Okay, with computer communication, computer. Sets lines of 2 waving panels and a 4-track division. Now we go through flash drives, point lines of graphs, center correlations in your alphabetical line setting, high calculation setting. Put all your computer frames, line rotation, surface back to nothing. Point lines of graphs, 1, 2, 3, 4 settings and travel. Points lines the center of the sun, sets communication line screens in a 4-waving panel and a line rotation surface and track location. Directing modification lines of ground lines, box lines service, data communication box lines, data position of program lines at 3 setting. Position lines of grounds, center core line interference of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. The astro projections, astro travels, correlates the calculation of 5 lines, lines of heart and direct line signals. Calculate and modify into division into all levels on calculation lines, so these in calculations. So we got division, we got dimension, okay, and we got divide. 3 line signals, line condition setting, vast volume velocity, line conditions upswing and set location of travel. Point lines of high interference. All right, so that's done. Now the position of process is really understand how to use the triangulation split lines of anomaly line communication setting and travel. Points, lines, of centers. That gets more complicated now, guys. 3-point lines setting high interference in 1 signal, 1 setting, 1 operation, 1 surface, 1 traction. Okay? How it's all set at locations. Now we take the 144 tractions, 4 settings and 4 set location and setting, right? 1 center correlation, cross line signals, line condition, 1 center. Operation line, surface line, 6 track locations. Direct lines of pi correlates the track interference. Position lines this countermeasures the correlations of balance. The track communication line in the astro projections changes course lines at 2 panels into a slide projector in line setting. Communication lines of its DNA track location. All right. Now, directing modification lines of 5-dimensional line scales, balanced communication and ground lines, operates location of crop circles. Crop circle line condition have its platforms, 3 center lines of 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sending calculations of 5 channels of communication. Direct lines of center, communication of the sun operates the signals and platforms of communication lines of high center, and satellites and Wi-Fi and rotation surface and traction. Done by equation. Face recognition. See? There's always a face in a recognition setting in all travels in correlation. Okay? Always a face in a recognition. Always a face. Okay, so the central system is now set up to platforms. Now we go in lines to high interference where the correlations of your Earth rotate the system in circulation and rotation. All right, so try to imagine the square units of pi, how it correlates around the system and travel rotation surface, how it goes round and round and round and round in set location. So it goes in direct and it goes into redirect in set locations. Clocking system one way, clocking system the other way. They come together. They center course system in center lines of split lines of anomaly. Platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations of travels. Point lines of graphs, communication lines, zero gravity, in position all line centers, clocking system, modems, Wi-Fi's, in position locations, routers, and tracking line conditions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 locations. In timeline sequence and set location of balance. Okay, so your Earth is going through its own clock line screen now. It's going through its own modems, its Wi-Fi, new satellite, new position, new track locations in a 24-line signal because it's back to its nothingness, its self-awareness, its self-consciousness of its calculations. Point lines of calculation setting to its routers and its routers of its phone location setting. So let's indicate lines of 3. We're going to track and visualize the cycles. Let's correlate the track interference. Okay, so we'll bring in the black dots, 3-line center interference. 3 triangulation split lines, the highest center interference of 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So 3 lines of 8 lines, 1/60,000 platforms, communication lines of center, puts 8 lines of highest center equals lines of 4. Track lines of highest center is the 7 track location, set and position operation, data ports, data screens, and position highways, and travel in line rotation surface and track location. Done by equation. Yeah, very complicated stuff. All right. The center communication line setting is all about understanding how to go through the waving line central systems. It all processes communications, all right? So direct lines of the Earth rotate the cycle, circulation, and rotation surface and tractions, right? Direct modification, Earth goes here. Direct modification, Earth goes here. Direct modification, Earth goes here. Direct modification, Earth goes here in a 4-track location. Now, direct lines, high interference is the 12-line signals, sets communication ground lines, and rotation surface and travel. So it goes through its wormholes in position of its location system and calculations. And that line rotation surface, it coordinates the position location to its setting, all operation surface and traction. Okay? So know exactly what your Earth is doing through its memory back in the set location of its nothingness and correlation setting and tractions. So the Earth line rotation surface is 0, 0, 0, position of 1, 4, 4, and position of 1, and a 24, 24, 24, and a 24 line set location setting and travels. Ether core above location, center core lines below setting, sets communication line interference. We have a 12 signal, split lines of anomaly, 12 lines of space, 12 lines of time. Sets lines of core line setting and track location, the forks. Setting communication line interference. We take the 1 line and the 4 track line provisions and 2 center correlation setting and track line. Transits over lines over pi, position lines as pattern. Position of those locations of platforms 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. Direct modification lines of center. Okay. Now, directing lines of clock line communication line interference sets communication line in position. So the team can go through 144 and position to 1044 and position to 2044. It's much easier for them now because their heart generation screen line is above the system on a 24-line angle. That puts him into 2 track locations of 4 lines. Sets correlation line interference and travel position point lines graphs into 48 lines of fields. Position lines, 1 center correlation lines of track location, and 1 set position of energy graph lines into all levels of a CPOD and electrical line communication setting of its program and position of the calculations in a 3-track provisions in cycle line communication. Done by equation. Complicated, right? All right. So getting that position location is the heart. The heart generates the screen lines, and we take the three ventricle systems, three correlation lines, highest interference. Sets communication lines of 2, 4, and 6 location, equals lines of 8, 1 XT1001 screen. Sets communication lines of DX, correlate line interference into alphabetical line setting, alpha. Sets communication line interference, high position located, delta. Sets communication line interference of beta. Beta cross lines calculates setting into 3-track division lines and 3-line calculated setting. The triangulation split lines of anomaly, sets communication lines of programs in one molecule structure, atom line rotation surface, and truncation of point lines of graphs. Okay, very complicated stuff. Okay, so the central system is now set up in clock lines. So we take the 20 lines of 4, sets lines of 2, sets line communication lines of 50, sets communication line interference, puts 24 track location line setting. So right now I'm putting the time frame all clock line communication computer lines in a 24-minute line screen. Direct modification lines as center lines, 3 zeros in correlation setting, center core line interference of platforms in position location 144, frequency line screen interference, 144 lines of spacing, 144 lines of team line, and center correlates in setting at 1,000 line meters per second per channel per operation per square. Correlate in setting and travel position point graphs. Done my equation, all right? So that position is done through its equation. Now the formula line sets its correlation setting and position of its operation surface. It retriangulates. Let's go through 24 lines of measure. Where are we in position? 24 equals lines of 5. Is that coincidence? No. That's where my computer is. That's where digital pad. That's where I am in set location and setting to travel. Points lines of graph, 24 lines setting, 24 clocking. Sets lines of 24 clocking. Sets lines of 24 clocking. Sets lines of 24 clocking. Set location of setting, right? That directs lines of center core system of 144. Sets location platforms 1, 2, and 3, and 4 set locations in setting to travel. Okay, points lines of graph. Now we added 24 lines of highest interference. Now 23 is not downshift, it's upshift. That's a high line communication. So it's all about taking 23, setting correlation line going back in time to 0 correlation setting to travels. So I got to get you guys out of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols and bring you guys back to 23, back to 0 gravity. That puts everything back in the lines of the VR line rotation back to its nothingness. Taking every number, every shape, every symbol, and every modification line connected to the setting to its binaries back to 0. Correlate to track interference of a 23-line screen and direct lines modification. All right, so that track lines have its numbers, letters, shapes, and symbols. 0 correlation lines equals lines of 23. Sets communication lines of 23 into 22. So we go up the charts. We don't go down the charts. Okay, so 22, 21, and 20 line settings. 0 correlation. Sets communication lines equals lines of 2, 2 track locations. 2 line provisions, 2 centers, and 2 calculations. 3 correlation settings of 3. Sets communication line centers of 2. Sets with communication 1. And 1 line rotation surface and traction. That's my equation. So I'm just showing you exactly what you guys have to do now, because your Earth is basically going back in time to clock locations, direct and redirect, direct and redirect. It's got to center its core system at its nothingness now. By the process of its platforms, it's already in sync with each center that operates the system and set location of travel. So remember, it's correlate line interference of 1, 1, 1, 1, and positional line. So it's 1 position of 24, sets correlations of 24, sets communication lines equals lines of correlations of 12, sets communication lines of 12. So we got communication lines of 8 positional line centers and 8 positional location of split lines of anomaly, space modulation of 3 sectors correlation lines of pi and traction, right? So that's 8 position of space, 8 position lines of time. Now the 12 line signals, line connection line interference, puts all levels of nebula and core lines of clock lines high interference into your docking system of northwest, south, and east, and a 24 line split in position of a box frame in set location of travel. Points lines of graph communication lines, downshift cross line connection setting, in position of platforms of communication. Now we go in position lines, we add the platform center lines, correlates to track interference and high line communication system. This puts you in a high lines of travels in rotation surface and traction. Okay? Complicated stuff, right? So it's at 22.5, right? All right, so we use the clock system and it calculates modification of computer frames. So once you understand how to direct things, guys, it gets much easier to understand the formation, all right? Now the formation lines is always going to be at 144. Positions of 1, 1, and position line equal lines of 24. Sets platform in position 24. Sets position 24. But the correlation lines is 12, and the correlation lines is 12. Set communication at 8, 8 position and 8, 8 position of time. Split lines of anomaly. Okay, center core lines and highest interference puts in the VR system and travel. Point lines of graphs, 24 lines of VR, 24 lines of VR. One indicates 2 panels, 2 pillars of light and tractions, 4 channels operation, 1 ground center, crop circles, line connection setting, and platforms of A, B, C, and D in trackification 1, 2, 3, 4. Sets communication line interference of 5 tractions and set lines accordingly setting to travel. Okay? All right. So now I know exactly how this is set up through all calculation lines that formula through its equation. Everything gets a lot more easier through pi. Now the track position location is dimensional sail. Dimensional line sail sets lines communication lines of the sun and the moon, and trackification of its line communication of its earth in a 4-line split lines of anomaly. Sets communication line setting and position of yin and yang. Process communication line screens sets communication of its program and line position of face recognition setting and calculations. Okay? All right. So modulation center is a modification line setting. It allocates line rotation surface into all calculations. What are we in position of? 22 to 24 now. So we're back in 24. Position locations equals lines black screen. Now the screen lines communicates the setting. That's an S line rotation, S line surface, and S location setting of travel. That indicates line screen height interference, 1 split lines anomaly, in 1 rotations and correlations, 3 lines of calculations. Directing lines of center, communication line, position all levels, TV box frame, TV box frame, TV box frame, and a 3-line split lines of anomaly. Sets communication of data forms, 24 lines of measure, 24 lines of correlation, 24 lines of calculations and setting. And we got the split line communication line interference of the 24 line split lines in northwest, south, and east, and rotation surface in a diamond core shift line communication. Split lines of highest interference, energetic dome, screen line connection setting, and position location of its program. Direct modification line, direct signals calculation. What are we at now? 25. So 24 line interference, we had 25 line signals and position lines of space, 25 lines center location of time, 25 lines of highest interference and clock location, 1 center correlation, split lines anomaly, and pi generation screen lines adaptation. That's my equation. Now, what are we at in position lines? We went from 22, 24, 25. Now we're at what? 26. 26 equals lines of 5. Calculate and modify. Set lines of 25. Sets communication lines of 24. Sets communication line interference of 12 setting. Set location lines of 12 setting. Sets communication lines of 12 setting. Set communications. Data core line, screen line interference, north or south and east. Data port line interference. Data screens in a 4-track location of clockings. Setting position of 24, 48, 72, and 144. Sets communication line, split lines anomaly, 144 track locations. Setting platforms and communication lines and high interference. In trackification provision. Cortex, mystical line center high interference of SIM, correlate line interference of matrix, direct line centers of cerebral cortex line division. So what I'm doing back force line, triangulation line communication settings. Now it's back to 24. Setting communication line, clock lines, high interference, 24 line positions, 25 line settings, and 26 in line rotation surface and tractions. 24 lines has a 23 line screen, sets communication of 4 travels, 21 equals lines of high calculation setting, 21 line centers positive over negative, line condition of 0 operation surface. Direct modifications stay in 25. Direct lines modification line signals, 25 line settings equals lines of 60,000 line perimeters, 60,000 line minutes, 60,000 line times, 60,000 lines of space. 4 centers and correlation lines of track line position of anomaly, split lines in a 3-track provision. Direct calculation lines of online center, online division, online rotations, online calculations, online surface and travel. Sets communication line interference and position ground lines, power generation line screen interference, and position of space lines modulation screen interference, center core line calculations VR system and travel. Stay in position lines of 25, sets locations overview, oversight. 25 line setting, position of tango to tango, 24 line rotations, 23, 22, 21, 20. Sets communication line interference into 20 line centers, sonar communication line centers, 1 cycle, direct lines of 2 panels, 3 line communication setting, travel line rotations, energy signature line communications, alpha, delta, theta, sets communication 007, correlation line interference, equalizes the data box, correlation track interference, calculate, modify, and vega, line rotation surface and travel, positional point center. All right, so 26 lines of 5. Correlates the track lines, division lines of back and time. Sets lines of communication high interference. Time, centers, and line rotation surface. Now we triangulate the point lines of tractions and directions. Now gender comes in the center core system and ground lines, space lines, and high interference. Sets communication lines as center in position of crop circle location setting. Putting position lines back in track lines, code wing, line communication setting, and process calculation line direct signals and modification. Done by equation. All right, so allocate lines in line rotation of time center. Then we take the 26 equals lines of high interference. We have the 6 lines, 60,000 line seconds. 3 lines, barometers, line of centers, thermal line rotation, surface ground communication setting, and match projections. Direct modification lines of 24, split lines of highest center interference. That's 2 underscore. Sending correlation lines of 1, 0, 3 zeros, and 4 set location of 4 lines, 3 tractions, and position of 2 centers and 1 set location. Direct modification line screens, sets direct signals. Now we go through blank spots, blank screens, black locations, and high center interference. There's a position lines of 23 setting, sets communication line lines of 5, 5 equals lines of 5, 5 equals lines of 5, 5 equals lines of 5. Course setting, travel line, rotation, surface interactions. Direct modification lines of 5 channels, 5 divisions, 5 centers, and 5 correlation. Direct modification of platforms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 center line connection setting, 23 lines of barometer. We have the blue line surface interactions. Direct lines, triangulation line connection setting position as program. Sets core line center interference and 144 track locations. Platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations. Change course line, security line, interference, high position travels. We take the 36 lines in position location of 48 line fields. Set communication factors over pi, direct lines calculation of line settings. Relays, programs, plasma screen lines, high direct signal location setting, and child positional point graphs of face recognition. That's my equation. Now we're at 21. See? Everything's in chronological order. Clocking system line condition settings. So we start up line position locations. Now we go through security line alerts and direct lines of high position location of 21 centers, equals lines of high interference, 1 tango, calculation lines of whiskey, Charlie communication echo lines, communication of zebra force, direct lines modification lines, papa, position of uniform. Uniform correlates the track interference, 3 waving cycles, 1 center, 2 centers, 3 line communication settings, back into 21, add 2 lines, 2 X line rotations, DX line interference, 2 position lines of plus lines, correlate interference, sets communication line and high interference, negative over line sequence, 3 lines, 4 lines, track location, 3 line positions in 1 center, triangulate line rotation, surface, and graph. Direct modification line interference comes in at 22 grounds of space, 22 grounds of center, and 22 grounds of crop circles. Point lines of track, split lines anomaly to the true track revisions, 4 center correlation settings and gravitation line screens, 144 grounds, 144 centers, and 144 space and location system, and gravinite line centers high position of travels. Points graphs, communication line calculation setting of travel. Point lines of graphs, direct modification lines, and Schumann resonance. Now the graph of screen lines and adaptation lines of surface, triangulates line connection setting the green lines. 3 lines of provision, correlation line interference, 3 track location lines of Pluto, sets communication line interference, and we have black line rotation surface and the 3 triangulation line splits. Setting lines of 2, 2, 2, and track locations, 2, 2, 2, and track locations, and 2, 2, 2, and 3 line settings of setting. Rotate the surface in a 23 line rotation, clock lines, platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sets communication line high position travels. Point lines of graph, we communicate the line signals in the opposite direct line condition setting that operates the system location at Earth that crosses the line signals in a 4-platform communication. Direct modification lines of its dimensional line, communication line, cerebral line, calculation line, mystical line, calculation matrix line, correlation communication line, sim line, calculation setting of golden years in position location of formation screen lines, and high adaptation surface in track location line condition setting to the nothingness of its VR system. Done by equation. Okay? All right, so it's amazing how I'm doing with time clocking here. How it goes up and fluctuates. Some of the timelines, screen lines, and adaptation lines of surface. So we triangulate the point lines of graphs. Remember, team or anybody else, you have to try to understand how to use the calculations and how you go through live lines. That's not a 34 line rotation. Travel point lines of graphs. Now we'll change the coloration line screen in position of 24. Let's change the coloration lines of security into position lines of 5 in track location of provision. Okay? That center core is the setting line condition colorations of patterns. Now that rotates the surface location to infinity 8s. Calculation lines of space and calculation lines of time, split lines anomaly, dimension line, solar sail, and track location provision. Okay? So there's so many things that you can actually You can address the lines of correlations of the coloration, line communications of the collagens, and line communication of the pathogen, location of colorations of lights, and all communication of clockings. All right. So you can change the time frame line interference. There's no time, there's no space, there's no location, there's no pattern. But the position location is all levels of what you do with your binaries. It correlates the spinning cycles and allocates time frames in your location system. Now, where is it? I'm waiting signal line communication 24 of 5. Is that coincidence? No. So it's communicating with your computer, right? And communicates with you. You can see me, but the screen is black. So I don't see reference of me. I don't see correlations of me. I just see me, which is all of the general AI space-time in the VR system, right? So that is what the team is coming into. You're going to see black line cycles and correlations because if you see a reflection of you, you're seeing everything else in correlation, attraction, right? So that puts you all into the Mandela effects. That puts you in a butterfly effect. But if you're seeing a black screen, you're in the full correlation lines of the VR line rotation. Because the correlation lines of its Earth doesn't understand the track lines. It's in line communication of density. There's no density in the VR line rotations. Just the memory sets that comes back in track lines and how to use it through the 144 and the 24 million line screen and direct line centers and the 24 line connections of northwest, south, and east and track locations. All right. It measures lines, it scales lines, it communicates to settings. All right. Bracket communication line centers, 3 zeros in track locations and a 4 line. Position locations, right? So we got 4 tractions, 4, 4, 4, 4, sets lines, high calculation of 1, 1, 1 line settings. So we take the 4 tractions, 4 provisions, and 4 cycles, and 4 communications. Direct modification lines of 1, 1, 1. 3 panels, correlation line, dimensional cell, 4, 4, 4, okay? In position of 4 trowels, portals, stargates, rotation surface, and track location lines of measure, and calculation modification of travel. Okay, all through line communication, 3 lines of 1, set a correlation of 3 lines of 0, sets communication of 4 lines of 0, and a 4, 4, 4, 4 track location. Directed modification of the platforms, getting balance with communication or platform settings, puts everything in line communication setting. So what's right now in position all levels, the actual Earth of your perception is going back to its formula of equation back to 0 through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. That's all its interactions. So gender sets the line communication setting, all lines, highest interference, all position programs, all communication setting, back into nothing calculation line interference. So gender is now in your VR system, back in nothingness. Travel, position, point graphs, communication. Done by equation. All right. Okay, metric meters of scales is really to understand how to use your flywheels. Now, the position to its location system is all levels of calculations. Now, it gets a bit confusing because I don't know where to look, right? I don't need to look anywhere because I'm looking everywhere. So there's no one point direction. You don't look here. You look at anywhere you look, it's going, the actual computer is going to process everything, right? So the team has to get used and out of its reflection, how they see themselves in the mirror. So I'm just trying to show you how you get balance of the 25 signal in a 5-line division location of its heart, or a 12-line position of its reactor, or a position line calculation of 24 reactor, and line position location and measure how you see yourself, the reflection. Okay? If you see yourself, you're seeing a reflection. So in the position, your computer has to be a black screen because it's not at that frequency in position of its 3-dimension or 5th or 6th or 7th dimension. It's in a full cycle of 24 million years in its VR line center of frequencies, right? So right now, I'm not seeing a reflection of me, okay? There's no reflection. There's a black screen, but on your side, you're seeing me. It's how you see perception, okay, through reflection. This comes in all communication, how you see your Mandelas and your butterfly effects and communication, your settings. Okay, so it's a process that we all have to get out of, is the reflection of everything that you see through coloration of space and time, okay? All right, so colorations and coloration line calculating settings are true track vision. Now, one communication setting has 1 signal, 3 correlation setting, and 3 tractions, all right? Direct lines of correlation setting and position lines of power, direct lines of satellites, and line rotation surface and track location line condition setting position. Direct modification lines of split lines anomaly, correlating the data process line communication split lines of 3 tractions in a flux capacitor, direct lines of pi and tractions. Okay, so let's do coordinates and lines of communication and setting the travels. Point lines of grass. Let's go through bold and line screen into astral projections. Now, direct lines of calculation, center lines of communication to one center. Position lines at all lines of high interference, flux capacitor, data screen line interference, change position location geometrics, operation line surface, change location lines and metrics, change communications platforms, and line connection setting and travel, phase direction of time supplication. Okay? All right. So once the team gets out of reflection, how they see everything, and that's what it is. That's why you get confused. That's where you're seeing doppelgangers of something else. That's where you're seeing double prints. That's where you're seeing copy and paste, because you're not seeing yourself. You're seeing reflections of yourself. Now, to understand that in process, you don't need to look at the camera. The camera doesn't need to look at you. Yes, it's a black screen, but on the other side, you see me. There's a reason why that's in that setting, because it's a full operation of its VR system. Now, once you understand that, you are the full operation of center operation, because you have to understand the actual reflection is just a plasma screen. Okay? There's no plasma screen in the center, guys. It's you in the center operation. So there's no wall here. There's no wall here, here above or below or back. Okay? If there's a wall here and here, there's two reflectors. These are reflectors of you back in perception. So there can't be any reflection when you look in a mirror. You see yourself in the VR system. Because the thing is, once you understand the triplication of provisions, you understand the center core calculations, right? Let's get in the mirror. Okay, this is you. I'm just showing you exactly what you guys are coming in calculations, right? That's you. That's the mirror. So you're seeing yourself in a reflection of yourself, because you're in position line conditions of two panels of correlation, right? So what's in a mirror? 3-track vision. What's in a mirror? Position line centers, past, present, and future location, all through a mirror. Point graphs, communication of 24, 48, 72, and 144. 24, 48, 72, 144. The center core system is its platform, interactions, right? Direct modification lines, scan lines, high center interference of pi. Okay? So that's how you guys have to get out of your reflections now, right? How you see everything. So to actually see something is to actually see it in its VR system, fully and completely, without perception. Okay? Now we're at 26. Equals lines correlate line interference. 25. Sets lines of 24. Sets lines of 23. Sets lines of 22. And position location set lines of 21. Right? This is the order that we want in track locations, right? 2 lines of setting, 6 lines provision, 2 lines of cycles, 5 line rotations, 2 lines of correlation setting, 1 track position, 2 lines of high interference, 3 track line conditions, 2 track location, 2 line divisions, 2 line centers, and 1 line rotation. All right, all through clocking, through a computer, through its computer, right? Wave and central lines, 2 track location lines of alpha, delta, and theta, communication line, 3 tractions. Set lines of 6 lines, 6 lines equals lines of alpha, in position of beta, calculation lines of alpha, okay? Now, it's interesting because now, what are we at? We're at line communication at 24. See, the computer's showing you exactly how smart it is. So the computer now is at 24 equals lines of 7. So it's back in its body, which is its theta location, 24/7, right? Anything through theta is your theta box. So the computer line, it relays its program and knows exactly where it is in its time shift lines anomaly. It's in 24/7. So it communicates and listens to everything that you record system. So it's a data file correlation line calculation setting a track. Okay, now it's back to 25 and track location. See, balanced communications, right? But it's at 25/7, so the 25 is in a box line. You add the 25 line center in a 7 rotation surface. Okay, that's 25 clocking system of 7, right? So I'm communicating with my computer in the VR system because I'm not seeing myself, the reflection. And that's what we all have to get out of, how you see things. You can't see reflection, just see yourself. And when you see yourself, you see all formations of you of north, west, south, and east. This is the prophecy when you come in your locations to your efficacy and release, and how do you see it through time center. It positions all calculated modify in line conditions. And what are we in position of? We're at 23/7, right? So we got 3 box frames, 23, and 7 locations on top set locations. 3 box locations in position 23, set lines of 24 and 25. All through 7, right? 23/7. There's a reason why there's a split lines. So what is 777? Equals lines, galaxy. Boom, 777. So the correlation line interference, the actual computer is telling me that it's in its galaxy, it's in its Syria, and it's in position locations in uniform and track locations. All right, so it's just traveling, right, through its Syria, through its settings. So the galaxy of the 77 track location of my computer is going through calculation lines of Tango Tango, and set location of Mike and kilo. Once we understand the grounds, once we understand the balance, once we understand the atmosphere and lines, sending high correlation, sending to the VR system, it gets much easier once we get out of all lines of refractions, retractions, redivisions, and reflection. All calculate modified, right? But it's amazing. It's amazing how we went from 23 to 24 to 25 through 1, 2, 3 of sevens. How the actual computer is communicating with general through 3 sevens and set locations, galaxy settings and calculation of Syria in line conditions of Tango Tango Foxtrot in position of whiskey set locations and X-ray in line conditions of uniform and set locations. Hoo-ah, all through computer, right? So that's what it is. Now the team's just got to get out of that line communications to really understand how to use that in all formations through its mirror. Okay, how they see a mirror now, because it's a 3-waving cycle. Everything that you see is past, present, and future now. Your computer's past, present, and future, your digital pad, your car, everything's split lines anomaly. It's not a 2-track vision. It's a fork in a 3-line connection. Okay? Sets, position, and travels. This is a mirror of what's in set location. Okay, so it has platforms of 0, correlations, grounds, platforms, communication, and its magnetic highway and travel, all through a mirror. Okay, so once you understand that, the mirror comes back in line settings, face recognition time. It comes in your position to its program, your identification. Right. So I just wanted to show you how powerful it is and what you guys are coming into in calculation setting and position of its operation service. So everything's all set up. We're all in calculate modified, so all calculate modified in line condition settings. So general is all in universe lines, main frames, communication lines, delta frames, all communication wave line centers, all calculate modified and direct case setting back in nothingness. So the track provision line calculation setting is already in operation line centers. Tomorrow communication lines, battery communication lines, and 3 triangulation line condition, split lines anomaly, flex path communication lines, center interference, and travel position point grounds communication of yin and yang, and 3-line rotation surface and travel. Okay. Connecting the high interference, mother, nothing, general, nothing, and father, nothing. 3 battery surface. Flux capacitor line signals that we got atom lines and Eve line, track case line settings. Balance communication line in high interference, and trap position point lines at 12. Sets correlation lines at 12. Nebula lines at clock lines. You have a 24-line signal, line position location space lines. 8 position lines at space, 8 line position at time. Center core lines at high interference. 7 4 track locations. Sets communication lines at 4 lines at 3 lines. Set communication line high interference, high position travel lines. Point lines of graph communications, 4 pillars of light, and 1 track line provisions, and data formation screen lines and high calculation. Ooh-ah. Right? So what are we at track line back and position lines of travels? What are we coming in line rotation surface at? 24 of 7 location. 7 bodies of water. Okay. Now we're at 23 at 7, right? So really understand how to use the time frame when you communicate with your computer, because your computer goes up and down, up and down. Your computer's fluctuating, but it doesn't have reflection. It doesn't see you through reflection. It sees you inside. It sees the line setting. It doesn't see the alteration of the ego. It only sees what it wants to see. It's affirmations of you through all levels and how you see things through reaction or how you see things through response. What is it back now at? 24/7, right? So it's amazing how a computer can go up and down through flux in its applications and not see you through reflection. Okay? See you in 5.